do on the first day of the month. Goes back to the practice of calends, which the Romans kept, which the word calendar comes from calends. All right? Going back to this, it says the reign of Solomon was enveloping the entire world. Israel's close neighbor, Phoenicia, and their expert navigators were working with the servants of Solomon from both countries' ports. The ships of Tarshish sailed extremely long, and the ships took off from Tarshish all the way to the so-called New World. It says the ships of Tarshish, which is known as Spain today. Tarshish is known as Spain today. The ships of Tarshish sailed extremely long voyages to bring back all kinds of raw materials and items, copper and other ores, flora and fauna samples, exotic animals, etc. It would help explain the need of 3-year journeys. Now, that isn't that account found in the Apocrypha? Oh, you got it? Okay.
Well, I got the one in the scripture. And then,
Yeah, and in the Apocrypha, to wrap it up, it said it would help explain the need of 3-year journeys if the seamen had to cross the ocean to come to these far-off isles in America. Come on, man. Come on,
See,
Shaka.
this is how you put it all together, man. You
Come
know?
on, Shaka.
And the children of Israel knew to come to this land. And we're going to read about that, man. You see how beautiful this history is, man? You know?
yeah, and then Columbus knew to come to this side of the world because in that movie 1492, it said that the one of the accounts that he had was Ezra's. And then the priest or the friar, whatever he was, he said Ezra's is a Jew. You know, because he knew, he read the Apocrypha, he read of that account. Now this is the book of 1 Kings chapter 9 verse 26. And King Solomon made a navy of ships in Ezion-Geber, which is beside Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. Right? So then when you read the 10th chapter, 1 Kings 10 and 21, it says, and all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. And that's the reason why this guy, Cristobal Colon, or as y'all know him, Christopher Columbus, wanted to come to this side of the world to find these gold and silver caves, you know, where King Solomon was getting this gold and silver from. And that's what he was trying to find, you know. And he already knew of this side, the existence of this side of the world, because there were many different records out there. And the family that he married into, the daughter he married into, I believe it was her father, he had a whole bunch of different maps, you know, of different voyages, you know, that people had taken, you know, and he gave him that as like I believe it was as a wedding gift, if I'm not mistaken, you know. So this side of the world was already known. And it was inhabited by the Israelites, the so-called Native American and the so-called South and Central American Indians or Aborigines that were in this land. You know, and the reason why they knew about this place was because King Solomon, as we read, he had Sidonians, you know, Phoenicians. They had in the other chapter that they had knowledge of the sea, because that's what they were. They were seafaring people. And all they did was trade by sea. That's how they made their money. That's it. You know, so when King Solomon sent them, they came over here. They knew how to navigate, you know, the different waves and the currents. They knew all of that, you know, because they were experts in the sea. Because that's what they spent all their time in the sea, you know. So when they came over to this side of the world, that's how Israel knew to come to a land where never mankind dwelt, to keep the laws and statutes in the land, in this land, that they never kept in their own land, you know. And they knew that.
And I'm going to go as far as to say you had the Israelites. Well, Solomon had the other nations. He was sending the Hamites over here. But I'm pretty sure you had some of Israel would make that voyage too.
Yeah, well, it said that
Yeah.
King Solomon sent some of his servants.
He sent some of his men. So there were Israelites coming on those voyages with them Hamites over here to explore the land, man. So later on, when we was under the Assyrian captivity, that knowledge was passed on. It hadn't been that long since Solomon's passing, so we knew to come. We knew to come over here. And by the way, going back to Columbus, when he got to the Caribbean islands, because that's where he landed. Okay, he didn't come to the mainland, meaning here. He went to as close as he got to the mainland was Cuba. Okay, Columbus went to Cuba. He went to Puerto Rico. He landed in the Dominican Republic first, which is Haiti. It's on, that's the same island. They just divided. He landed there first in Dominican Republic, Haiti. He went to Puerto Rico. He went to Cuba and then some of them other little small islands, man. But when he got there, the so-called Indians that was there, Ephraim and Simeon and whatnot, they had all kind of gold and metal, because those islands were rich in resources, man. There was gold there, rich in it. Puerto Rico, which is rich port. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, the Indians, the Tainos, and the Arawaks had all kind of gold crowns and gold in their garments and all that kind of stuff, man. So when he got there, he said, oh, shit, yeah. He knew that these were the people. He said, yeah, these are them Israelites, man. This is them. See?
Yeah, because this white man always studied history. You know, that's why there was a library, famous library that they still talk about today, the scholars. That's where the supposed, what is that stone? What's that stone? They got commercials on it now.
Not Rosetta Stone.
The Rosetta Stone.
Rosetta Stone.
Well, they got the name for that. That's a language system to learn. I heard it was real expensive, but there's a system that you can learn real quick. But the reason why they call it, I think the reason why they call it the Rosetta Stone, because the Rosetta Stone goes back to when they had translated during the time of Alexander the Great and his generals, when they had used, it was actually Ptolemy, the Ptolemaic dynasty, during that period where they had all these different nations that they conquered, Alexander conquered, and they took all of their resources and they put it into that library. And they had that stone which they understood the writings of the so-called pharaohs, because they had conquered the Egyptians, and they had got translators to translate from the so-called Egyptian hieroglyphs, I'll call it, to the Greek. So in order for the white man from wherever they came from Europe, like one guy, Champion Alone, he's a major guy, and he was one of the so-called first people to translate that. But basically what he did was he read the Greek. He learned the Egyptian characters from the Greek, because like I said, it was translated from the so-called hieroglyphs. I'm just using that word, that's Esau's word, to the Greek writings, and that's how and then they translated it into French, and then they translated it into England. So these Edomites are always exploring and always trying to figure stuff out. Now, you had mentioned the Olmecs, right? The Olmec those big Hamitic heads, and I'll give it to you. Those are They look like Canaanites. So you said that's proof that the Africans came over here more than 2,000 years ago. Yeah, because we're reading about it right now. King Solomon's navy. Now,
That's right.
to show you that it was Canaanites, it says in the 27th verse of